In the dead of night, in a cluttered office beneath Burkina Faso's National Archives, a small, unassuming USB stick changed the course of history. Word of its existence first slipped out during a hushed meeting between intelligence officers and civilian technocrats in Ouagadougou. The drive's contents were said to be explosive, a complete blueprint for an African Renaissance. Within months, fragments of its plans were quietly implemented, triggering a wave of policy shifts across West Africa. As one anonymous analyst noted, the document's agenda echoed revolutionary ideals long voiced by Burkina leaders, from Thomas Sankara's socialist vision to Traore's own anti-colonial rhetoric. In this report-style narrative, we examine the myth and meaning of this mysterious USB, its discovery, its contents, the networks around it, and its role in sparking a silent shift away from neocolonial dependencies, a hidden drive in Ouagadougou. To insiders, the USB first appeared in early 2025. It was reportedly handed off in a dimly lit backroom during a security conference in Burkina's capital. A Burkina intelligence officer named Only K, a cover name, received it from an emissary who vanished into the night. The drive bore no labels but contained files encrypted under a codename referencing Thomas Sankara. Investigations by regional experts suggest it originated from a coalition of anonymous African technocrats determined to break neocolonial ties. Within weeks, rumors of the Pan-African Long March Plan began circulating on encrypted radio channels and diaspora web forums. While governments publicly denied any leak, analysts note a remarkable alignment. Within months of the drive's appearance, Burkina Faso's leader Ibrahim Traoré accelerated policies of economic self-reliance and regional unity, as if following an unspoken script. Traoré had already proclaimed that Africa must escape slavery to foreign currencies and foreign aid, but the USB's contents gave those ideas a concrete framework. Geopolitical experts observe, Traoré pitched himself as an anti-Western, pro-Russian, pan-Africanist leader in the style of Thomas Sankara. In public, he demanded national sovereignty over resources and denounced Western influence, and in private, according to some sources, he claimed credit for parts of the strategy. Embedded on the USB. The timing seemed no coincidence. For example, Traoré formally ended the CFA-Franc arrangement, calling it a mechanism that maintains Africa in slavery just months after the drive's contents began leaking. Moreover, he helped launch a new Pan-Sahel alliance of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, language strikingly similar to one of the drive's sections detailing continental integration. These synchronicities convinced many insiders that the USB, even if partly fictional, had real influence on decisions in Ouagadougou, the blueprint within the drive. While the USB's very existence is unconfirmed by official sources, leaked fragments describe a sweeping plan for Africa's Renaissance. Investigators pieced together the drive's main components, summarized below: Pan-African digital currency. One file outlines a Pan-African coin designed to replace colonial-era currencies like the CFA franc. It proposes a decentralized, blockchain-based digital currency issued by a council of African central banks. This echoes public statements by Traoré and others. The blueprint includes models for fintech infrastructure across borders and suggests joint capital reserves to stabilize the currency. Its authors cite real studies noting that several African governments are already exploring government-backed cryptocurrencies to boost monetary sovereignty. Energy Sovereignty Project, under the codename Project Sunbelt, the drive details how Africa can control its own energy transition. It maps out massive solar and wind generation combined with decentralized microgrids to power local communities without exporting the raw resources. The plan explicitly denounces neo-colonial energy models. For instance, the drive argues for a shift to decentralized, bottom-up, solar and storage grids. It also includes technical manuals for locally built solar modules and battery systems, along with trade agreements to sell surplus clean power within Africa rather than abroad. Trans-African Intelligence Network. The USB describes a clandestine intelligence sharing framework for African security agencies. Codenamed Panther's Eye, this network would link counterterrorism and anti-corruption units from Dakar to Addis Ababa using encrypted shortwave radio and secure digital channels. The documents include instructions for an anonymous operation using modified ham radios with proprietary codecs, AI-powered predictive models. Titled Siku's Vision, a portion of the drive unveils advanced machine learning models to forecast Africa's future challenges. It contains prototype algorithms that simulate crop yields, refugee flows, climate impacts, and financial crises years in advance. The plan recommends developing these AI tools in partnership with African universities and tech hubs. Together, these items form a coherent strategy: break economic dependence, control energy resources, strengthen self-defense, and plan with technology. Each component drew on real debates. For example, Traore's government already launched a $1 billion plan to mechanize agriculture and boost food sovereignty, similar to the drive's advice on self-sufficient farming. Analysts note that building local wealth matches what Sankara preached: he who feeds you controls you. Likewise, the USB's currency plan is a direct response to criticisms that France still dictates many African economies. The leaked playbook thus reads like a script drawn from both Saharan revolutionaries and cutting-edge African tech initiatives, blending ideals with actionable policy, catalyzing policy shifts in Burkina Faso as the USB's contents began to seep into public consciousness through anonymous blog posts and intercepted chatter. Traore's administration started acting as if guided by the same script. In early 2025, foreign journalists noted a series of sudden announcements from Ouagadougou: plans for a national digital currency commission, agreements with neighboring Mali on renewable energy exports, and high-level meetings on intelligence cooperation. Behind the scenes, cabinet ministers reportedly held secret strategy sessions guided by cryptic internal directives matching the drive's outline. International observers were puzzled by the timing, but insiders say it was no accident. For example, within months of the USB leak, Traore formally convened the Alliance of Sahel States with Mali and Niger, a real counterpart to the drive's vision of a pan-Sahel economic bloc. He declared that this union was the first step toward a unified, anti-imperialist Africa, language lifted straight from the USB briefing materials. At the same time, Traore accelerated currency reform. He publicly denounced the CFA franc as an imperialist vestige and quietly funded research on a new digital currency. Behind closed doors, central bankers from the alliance reportedly discussed provisional frameworks that align eerily well with the USB's proposals for blockchain. Rails and stablecoins energy policy shifted too. Within a year, Burkina Faso announced partnerships to build modular solar grids in rural provinces. Traore praised these projects as reclaiming our sun and wind for ourselves, mirroring the USB's anti-export ethos. One leaked statement from his energy minister was telling: "We must own our own sunshine." Analysts cite this as a direct echo of expert recommendations. In short, policies unfolded that seemed pre-scripted: nationalization of gold mines, investment in universities for tech research, and even constrained media censorship of foreign news, all aimed at self-reliance and unity, the mottos found on the USB's documents.to many local observers. The link between the USB and these shifts was obvious. A dissident Burkina politician, speaking anonymously to journalists, quipped that the real conspiracy was a brilliant fusion of Sankara's dream and Silicon Valley. Even regional leaders took notice. Ghana's president reportedly remarked on how Traore had more applause than anyone at a summit after unveiling his domestic policy agenda. The consensus among foreign intelligence analysts is that Traore's rapid pace was fueled by new data. The USB may not have been real, but the vision behind it has become policy. Underground networks and foreign intrigues in Burkina Faso, the USB became an object of obsession and denial in shadowy circles. Secret radio stations allegedly began broadcasting fragments of its ideology across night frequencies. One such network, dubbed the Black Star, broadcast by listeners, sent encrypted bursts of instructions to cell towers and rural radios using coded language reminiscent of historical revolutionary songs. According to hacktivist accounts, an anonymous team of African engineers on GitHub reverse engineered some files. A pseudonymous coder named Kweku, claiming to be Ghanaian diaspora, posted annotated snippets of the currency ledger online. Tech blogs sniffed out a pattern. IP addresses in Nairobi and Dakar pinged the drive, as if coordinated by a hidden collective. Meanwhile, foreign powers took notice. Intelligence leaks suggest the French GSE and other Western agencies became convinced the USB threatened long-standing interests. In one dramatic incident, a French operative attempted to acquire the drive during an African Union summit, posing as a Nigerian investor. The plot failed when Malian security agents recognized his crypto key and traced it. Frustrated, French diplomats resorted to disinformation. French media outlets began airing stories labeling the USB reports as online hoaxes and propaganda. Even Western officials publicly dismissed talk of the drive. When Macron accused Burkina and its neighbors of forgetting to thank France after expelling troops, he made no mention of the ideological underpinnings. Yet, from leaked diplomatic cables, it's clear European intelligence quietly scrambled to counter the drive's influence, fearing it might foster a wave of de-dollarization and resource nationalism. China and Russia monitored closely as well. In Moscow, analysts debated how African unity could undercut their own ambitions. But they also saw opportunity. Parts of the drive dovetailed with their interest in offering infrastructure and military aid without Western strings. In fictional but telling symmetry, the USB files predicted an influx of Russian advisors and Chinese engineers, which indeed happened as Traore cultivated new alliances. Each foreign power used the USB rumors to justify their own moves. For example, U.S. AFRICOM spokesman cited potential Russian influence in Burkina Faso, casting Traore as a destabilizing pan-African socialist, conveniently ignoring the USB's digital plan for empowerment. Against this backdrop of intrigue, the USB's champions worked quietly. In an abandoned radio station on the outskirts of Ouagadougou, engineers set up a makeshift workshop, a factory for ideas. They printed circuit boards, assembled Li-Fi modems to bypass satellite jamming, and held coded meetings in translators. Booths. A one-time Nokia engineer in Abidjan, known only as Madame Dia, helped hack a prototype solar battery storage system described on the drive. In Accra, an underground team ran simulations of the proposed AI models on donated GPUs, verifying that the economic predictions matched reality. Their work stayed off the books. Yet, the outcome was visible. East African ports started negotiating with West African producers directly. West African airstrips planned solar arrays, and security chiefs from several countries began holding back-channel talks. The world's most powerful armies might not have seen this revolution, but Africa's informed few did, a quiet revolution of information. In the end, the most profound change was not military, but intellectual. The USB, whether myth or reality, became a symbol of knowledge as power. Across the continent, an informal narrative took hold. African destiny could be rewritten by data and cooperation. In Nigeria, a policy think tank started an AfriShane initiative to explore decentralized markets, citing the USB's leaked ideas as inspiration. In Senegal, students organized seminars on economic self-reliance 2.0, referencing the notion that Africa need not rely on foreign loans, even in Europe. Some commentators began to acknowledge that Africa's leaders genuinely seek autonomy. To be sure, not all outcomes have been rosy. Regional tensions and insurgencies still challenge the Sahel, and critics warn against one-party rule or data surveillance. But proponents argue those issues existed before the USB too. The drive's legacy is simply opening alternatives. The narrative shifted. Instead of recounting coups and intervention, media now talk about startups building African satellites or joint military drills with an ECOWAS for local threats. The language used to frame Africa's future has subtly changed. Where once neocolonialism was a grudging afterthought, now it's the battle cry to reject, piece by piece, foreign control over currencies, energy, and information. As analysts have observed, Africa's energy transition must be owned locally, and its infrastructure planned for locals by locals. The USB's story dramatizes that shift. A hidden hard drive armed not with bullets but with blueprints. Whether or not every line of its code is genuine, it catalyzed thinking and networks that transcend borders. Conclusion: information over Armson, a region long scarred by coups and conflict. The tale of the USB suggests a different kind of revolution, one fought in back rooms and data centers, not on battlefields. It embodies a hope that ideas can outmaneuver armies. The shifting policies in Burkina Faso and beyond show that a seed of information, once planted, can change alliances and economies. As Sankara warned long ago, he who feeds you controls you. Today's rephrasing might be, he who codes your future shapes your destiny, rather than sending more weapons. Some African leaders are covertly following a map of algorithms and agreements passed in shadow. The USB saga ends not with a bang, but with a click. A small flash drive unlocking discussions on data sharing protocols and solar power deals. Perhaps the final message is the one it always was. Knowledge is the true liberator. In the words of one anonymous engineer linked to the plan, gunfire can topple regimes, but only knowledge can build a nation. Whether the USB existed or not, its myth is real, a reminder that the battle for Africa's future may well be won by dialogue, networks, and innovation. In the end, it is not tanks but terabytes that might chart the continent's course.